Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into Joshua chapter 20 today.
Right, and straight away it brings up this, well, pretty unique idea in ancient law, these cities of refuge.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how specific they are. I mean, they weren't just general safe zones, right?
Exactly, not at all. They were specifically set aside for someone who, caused someone else's death, but, and this is the key part, it had to be accidental.
Unintentional, that's the word they use.
Completely unintentional, no prior hatred, no malice involved.
Which makes sense when you think about the threat they were facing.
Yeah.
This avenger of blood.
Right. The closest relative who felt obligated, by custom to seek immediate revenge, even for an accident.
So it's this potential cycle of violence just waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm. And these cities, they seem designed to interrupt that, to provide a kind of time-out zone, a safe space.
Yeah, a safe space for due process, essentially. The whole point seems to be figuring out intent. Was it murder or a terrible accident? Getting the person safe long enough to determine that.
So how did it work? The text says the person fleeing had to get to one of these specific cities.
And then what? Just knock on the door?
Sort of. They had to go to the city gate, which was like the public square, the legal hub, and actually plead their case, tell their story to the city elders.
Okay, so the elders are the first hurdle. They listen.
They listen, and they make an initial judgment. If the story checks out, if it sounds genuinely accidental, without prior malice, as the text puts it,
Then they let them in.
yes, they were obligated to grant entry, give them a place to live inside the city, and crucially, protect them. The text is really clear. Don't hand them over to the Avenger of Blood if he shows up demanding vengeance.
Okay, so they're safe inside.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a hotel, right? They couldn't just check in.
No, definitely not. They had to stay put inside the city limits.
For how long?
Well, two things had to happen. First, they had to stand trial before the assembly or the congregation, a more formal hearing than just with the city elders.
Right. A proper trial to confirm the lack of intent.
Exactly. And if they were cleared at that trial, confirming it was unintentional, they still weren't free to go home immediately.
Oh.
So what else? This is the really interesting part. They had to remain in the city of refuge until the death of the current high priest.
Until the high priest died. That seems arbitrary. Why that specific event?
It does seem a bit strange to us now, yeah. Scholars have different takes, but it likely marked a major societal shift. The high priest's death was a big deal, kind of closing an era.
So maybe like a symbolic reset. Atonement, perhaps?
Possibly. It provided a clear, universally recognized moment when the period of, well, required sanctuary ended. It wasn't tied to the individual's actions anymore, but to this larger event affecting the whole community.
That makes a bit more sense than just a random date. Okay, and these weren't just any cities. There were specific ones designated.
6 in total, strategically placed, 3 west of the Jordan River.
Let's see, Kadesh in Galilee, Shechem in Ephraim's hill country, and Kiriath Arba, that's Hebron down in Judah.
Got it. And then 3 on the east side of the Jordan.
Right. Bezer's over in Reuben's territory, Ramoth in Gilead, and Golan up in Bashan.
And the placement wasn't random either. They were spread out, seemingly for easier access. No matter where the accident occurred, you'd need to get there fast.
Makes sense. And who could use them? Was it just for Israelites?
No, and this is really significant. The text explicitly says this protection was for both the Israelites and the alien or stranger living among them, anyone in the community who killed accidentally.
Wow. Okay, so it applied equally across the board. That's quite progressive for the time, maybe.
It certainly shows a principle of justice based on intent, not lineage, protecting everyone residing there from immediate, potentially unwarranted vengeance.
So wrapping this up then, Joshua 20 gives us these cities of refuge. Key function. Safe haven for unintentional killing.
Protecting them from the Avenger of Blood until a trial. Conditions applied. Had to appeal to elders. Prove lack of intent. Stay until the high priest died after the trial.
And we have those specific cities. Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron on one side.
Bederzer, Ramoth, Golan on the other. And open Israelites and resident aliens alike.
So it really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this ancient system tell us about how they tried to balance justice, the reality of consequences, but also that critical difference between deliberate harm and a tragic accident within their community? It's a fascinating look at managing human tragedy and the desire for retribution, thousands of years ago. How did they really prove intent back then? That must have been incredibly challenging.